You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.
Wolverine Deep Cut #1, written by Chris Claremont. I was going to say Chris Claremont. Edgar Salazar on art, Carlos Lopez on colors, and VC's Travis Lanham on letters. We had to ask the X-Boys, the Weird Dose of X, if they were covering this. They were not.
They rejected it. You know what? Mr. Sinister's in this, Ruben. So
I know.
Take that.
Ruben's
Take that,
Mr.
Ruben.
Sinister. So I'm gonna bash anything that Mr. Sinister does just to get on Ruben's nerves. But actually, Sinister shows up at the end. Looks pretty cool.
He does.
And
that's the Sinister I like, not this new stuff. I like this one.
And Edgar Salazar does a pretty good job. It looks back in the day. I believe he was also doing the March Report Nights one that I thought started really good. And the art got, got a little rough around the edges. I thought by the end, maybe it was scheduling and time, but this looks really good. And with that, that's about it. I mean, Chris Claremont is telling a story that takes place back in the day. In between issues, it is when you have Logan leave the X-Men when he's in the Australian outback to go do something. We find out what it is. And pretty much in this issue, what it is fight Sabretooth. That's all it is. It's pretty cool. You get the scope is pretty cool. You get this small Wolverine. You get the big Sabretooth.
Yeah, it's really
Wolverine.
small.
Yeah, and Wolverine talking about what it means and them going against each other. But in the meantime, you don't get a lot more. And I did end up where people were asking me, oh, man, I want to see this Wolverine Deep Cut. I think that Chris Claremont has the story he'd been wanting to tell. By the end, I'm like, was the Deep Cut just getting his eyes ripped out? Because it didn't feel like much yet. But I think that it will end up maybe revealing some things that would probably play out better, for other people than me. I'm not a full-time, long-time, Wolverine or X-Men fan. So I think there might be some things that people will enjoy. But if you just want a, bash them out fight between Wolverine and Sabretooth, pretty good. Pretty good deal. Even though by the end, the big twist is that Wolverine says, and it ends up where they fight every year on Wolverine's birthday.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Kind of a cool thing. They end up doing that. And they usually tie. And that makes sense the way things go. But this time it wasn't. And you have Wolverine say, this doesn't feel right. And his blood, it was disgusting. When he says his blood didn't taste right, and I'm like, you got hepatitis, dude. There's no way Sabretooth isn't doing some crazy stuff.
Well, I mean, he just demolishes Sabretooth at the end, rips him up.
Yeah. I mean, even it is funny at the one point where Sabretooth does rip the eyes out of Wolverine, and they're not going to heal that quick. And he ends up like Jean-Claude Van Damme in Bloodsport, where he's just, doing moves and stuff, which I like. And then in the meantime, what the other big thing is, you go to the Yoshida stronghold with the Clan Yoshida stuff, and you end up having your favorite Lockheed, but you also have
Kitty Pryde.
And Kitty Pryde. And they're there waiting for and protecting stuff for Wolverine that he ends up going because of the idea that Sabretooth, he gets pissed, he gets mad at Wolverine, he's going to go after Mariko, who is the love of Wolverine. And so when this is all going down, you almost get to play at the end that you think that while Wolverine finds out he's fighting a clone, that, oh my God, that would mean Sabretooth was already there at the Clan Yoshida deal, but it doesn't seem to be quite.
Well, if Logan's with Mariko or Mariko, is he banging Storm too? Because she's like,
yeah, they're a little close.
Is that like a negligee she's wearing? Like,
I don't know. I think that's just
what you call
outfit. I don't.
Look at it.
I do like the the Mohawk Storm and
the leather jacket with the lingerie on. I like that.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah, and he's popping his claws. He's loving it.
He's like, you know what? Let's fight for some odd reason.
Yeah, that was a weird play, and she ends up zapping him. But you end up where she's like, do you need to? I actually really like this dialogue. Is so over the top of, where are you going? Can't say. Oh, when will you be back? Not going to tell you. Oh, do you need help? He ignore you. Like, he never says anything. And she's like, okay, well, if you need help, let me know. Won't happen. And then you just go back and forth. But this is also where the world thinks the X-Men are dead, and you want to keep that deal. And and then they start fighting. I thought that maybe they were fighting like, cut off my lingerie and you get whatever you want. But he says, Always, darling. I love there where you see how tall Storm is next to Logan. It's pretty cool.
Would you move to the Australian outback like in this picture here?
I don't like the Australian outback. I think I'd end up like, look at this. That's nonsense. I'd go. It
looks like the Wild West.
I'd go on a walkabout and never return. I'd end up dead. But yeah, so you go back to the fight again. There's not going to be much to talk about.
No,
here
it's just a
overall.
big fight, and then he's not really Sabretooth. He's a clone.
Yeah, you find out it's a clone. I think that the thing is, though, is when I say there's not much to talk about, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying that it's just not much to talk about. But I think if you're reading it and you're a fan of Wolverine, I think that you'll actually dig this.
It's called Deep Cut, and there's a reason for that, because it is. I mean, you got them back, 35, almost 40 years to read this?
You're going back a long time.
You got to be a pretty old head to know about this stuff.
And you're tying into, a couple series and things like that, including the Kitty Pryde Wolverine mini, which I may actually read. I like Kitty. And she ends up talking. It's an old school way of doing the way that but Claremont actually does it pretty well here. The idea of, hey, how are you going to protect? Well, did you know that I was with Wolverine? And he told me, but sometimes that is like, it's not. I think it's pretty good. And I like Kitty, and it keeps telling you, and you have some fun with the editor's notes as well. But yeah, at the end, a eyeless Wolverine ends up just completely, destroying Sabretooth, and then says, it must not. I love this play too. He's like, that was definitely a clone. So I don't feel like I got any sort of anything from this. We usually tie. And by the way, Sabretooth has really pissed me off at times. Now I'm going to taste his blood. Oh, no. I better, especially back in the day. You don't want to do that crap. But
no.
You end up where he starts thinking, he's like, okay, well, Yukio and Kitty, they have Yoshida, they have Mariko. All that is being covered. So I'm going to go because clones, that means Sinister. I'm going for him, and here I come. So I thought that was pretty cool. Even when he says, every culture has its boogeyman, their monster in the dark. For me, it's Sabretooth, the real Sabretooth. For mutants, it's Sinister, and I'm going to go take him down. And it's Marauder stuff. It all makes sense. And says, I'm going to go, and I'm going to take you down. And you get that, shadowy figure of what you said is a cool, really cool looking Sinister.
Yeah.
At the end,
he doesn't have the long hair. He doesn't make the stupid jokes. It's a classic Sinister right here.
Still don't know why. Well, I guess he has a healing factor, but still, don't taste Sabretooth's blood. That guy,
disgusting.
He's like worse than Tommy Lee. I'm telling you, that guy probably has 6 sex tapes with whatever. But you end up where next you have a pretty cool looking cover.
Also,
too.
there's one Sinister, not 4 or 5 of them or whatever. He's got the diamond on his head, not those other stupid clubs or whatever else.
Stuff. Yeah, it's classic. It is. I mean, when you do read these things, and again, this is a continuation of the pretty cool books that Marvel has found that niche of going back.
Chris Claremont's is the best X-Men writer ever, arguably, to a lot of people.
And so even the Peter David stuff when he did all that,
exactly.
These are cool books. And usually when you go into them, you can have some fun with them and, realize, I don't want to get too into the vernacular, but you realize this is going to be classic and it's not going to involve nonsense. Like you said, with Sinister, you're going to get classic. You're going to get the classic Wolverine. You're not going to go too over the top.
It's a weird thing because they really should just give these guys access to writing the main stories. Well, either they don't want to do it or they can't commit to it or whatever else reason, but this would be a really good X-Men writer again. He still would be.
Yeah, I know that they have the play where, he's under the contract where he has to be able to write this or he gets so many issues, whatever I've heard. I don't know for a deal. But now at this point, these older writers coming back and doing these hidden stories and things like that has become really big. So
yeah, no, that works for me. Yeah. I mean, I'd prefer an ongoing, but I like this. So.
Yeah, and it looks pretty good, like we said. So what would you give this?
8.
Yeah, I'm giving an 8 too. An 8 as well. I could even give it an 8 too. Whatever. It ends up where I just read a tie-in to the big event.
Solid.
Suck. We go back to Spider-Man Reign stinks, and then we get this. I'm like, this is pretty. Like I said, it reads better than what you can talk about because it's all just a fight, but it's cool.
It's just an action-packed classic comic book, man. With what you want to see with Wolverine, you want to see him fighting people and doing things.
Yeah. I don't need new I don't know. Like you said, just the sinister stuff would
You
drive
don't
me
need
nuts.
people talking to each other on park benches. This is the two guys fighting. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and changing their timelines, and stuff like that. All that nonsense that we don't need. I don't need that crap.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.